Yeah, so I know that the kids in my class, specifically, I've learned a little bit of tailing ponds in a math project a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Uh, there was a question from a parent in my class, a parent of a kid in my class, who wondered how did microbes that act like this, how do they differentiate between good oils and bad oils? Or how do they know? Or is there a risk when you introduce this almost like an invasive species type scenario where it starts to repel things that are meant to be together and need to be together in the soil?
Right. So the thing is, when we think of good oils or bad oils, we usually think about our health, like our human body. So this product is not something that we're using for personal use at the moment. It does have healthcare applications, but it would be more on topical use and not internal.
Oh, wow.
So the thing is that there could be possibilities, but the premise of our technology, in fact, is that we're removing the microbes themselves, and what we're delivering in the end are these non-toxic, completely natural, biodegradable particles, these soap bioproducts, if you will. And this product is very safe. It's think of it just like a cleaner. So even if you put it in the soil, what it does, it breaks up oil particles. So it basically makes, let's say you have a ball of oil, it just breaks it up into smaller particles. So it's not really harming anything in that sense. It's actually enabling the environment to degrade it easily, because degrading a larger particle versus a smaller particle is harder. So that it helps in that biodegradation. But what we're doing is trying to clean up that site. So there is processing involved in it as well, depending on the remediation situation.
When you talk about it's easier to degrade a smaller particle, would an appropriate analogy be that there's a reason why we chew food before we swallow it? It's easier for our bodies to kind of deal with it once it's in smaller pieces.
Exactly. So it's exactly like that. And actually, one of my favorite analogies for the microbe themselves has to do with our own digestive system. So the microbes that we have, the reason why it's producing these particles is just like in our digestive system when we eat. We have little enzymes or particles in our system that break down the food, because we need to break down the food so that we can digest whatever it is that we're eating. The same goes for little microbes. They still need to eat. So whenever they're eating, they secrete these products that allow them to digest better. And what we're doing is basically taking those products that help them digest better, and we're using them to clean up oil spills.
Okay. Um, so now we've got a question from Ruhi, who wondered how does your technology compare price wise to the existing synthetic options?
Okay, so that's a really important question, especially when we're leading a business. So one thing that we need to look at is price, of course, cost effectiveness. But another thing is also the value add. So when we look at other synthetic surfactants or other products, basically.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
That's the first time I think you've used the word surfactant. Do you mind defining what
yeah,
that
for
means?
sure. Sorry, I thought it was in the question. That's why I mentioned it. But of course, so what we produce are called biosurfactants, and that is the soap particle that I'm talking about. Surfactant is basically the chemical, non natural version of it. So, surfactants are basically the chemical, synthetic ones that are currently being used. What we're producing, we call them biosurfactants because they are, in fact, biological. So, either way, the way in which all of these surfactants work are the same. They're just like soap, and they break up these oil particles. So basically, to answer the question, on the market right now, we have chemical synthetic ones, which are, of course, can be toxic. Some of them can be ecological, but they are biodegradable, but they're not completely natural. So they don't really have the 100% green value. What we're producing is 100% green, 100% natural. So because we offer that value, we don't per se are able to offer it at the very, very low price that chemical surfactants can, but we are going to be cheaper than the other ecological surfactants, other ecological
Oh, okay.
competitors on the market.
So in kind of the hierarchy, the you're cheaper than the clean synthetic, but
Mm-hmm.
more expensive than kind of the zero consideration for.
Exactly, for environment. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Exactly. But an important thing to note is that when you have a product, it's not always about the cost per se. It's also about the value.
Mhm.
So the reality is that there is a market for these ecological surfactants, and there are many people who buy them, many consumers, different types of industries. Um, Equally so, the surfactant chemical industry is also big. Of course, right now we're seeing this trend towards more sustainable practices, more sustainable processes and products. So, our hope is that companies would see the value in our products and see that we're also offering it at a lower price point than other ecological options on the market. And we're adding an even added bonus because we're 100% natural, whereas
Yeah.
nothing else, the other two groups that I mentioned actually are not 100% natural.
So it's more than a clean chemical. It's a clean natural biological product.
Exactly. I don't even think I don't like using the word chemicals for what we're producing because in essence it's not a chemical. There's nothing traditionally chemical about it, the toxic sort of not environmentally friendly, which is what I think most people associated with the word chemical. So what we produce are these biosurfactants, and we like the word bio or bioproduct because it really drives home the message of sustainability.
Yeah, okay. It's almost a different product.
Exactly.
So speaking of that product, there are two more questions, one from Tyli, and then I've got one at the end. But Tyli asks, where is your company at with its rollout?
Yep, so that's also a really good question. So right now, I have our lab in Laval, which is just on the sort of outskirt of Greater Montreal, and we're a team of 5 right now. We're going to be expanding and adding more team members. Of course, that's a bit different now given the COVID situation. So right now, we have our microbiology lab, which is where we do all of our testing. We also work with partners on the commercial front. So we work with cleaning product companies. We also work with partners in Edmonton, where we're developing more of our oil spill developments. So we're at a stage where we already proved our technology. We know it works. We're at a stage where now we're scaling up the production. So we're creating more of what we have been producing in lab.
Okay, and so then this last question, and thank you for everything in your time as well, is from me. When you're this kind of goes back a bit when you're winning these awards and presenting. Can you speak to a little bit to your strategy when you're giving pitches and how are you kind of boiling down your message and what are the key things that you're wanting potential funders to hear about Dispersa and to hear about you and to hear about your story?
Right. So I think that it really depends on the type of pitch or presentation even that you're giving. There's different messages to take home. But if it's meant for investors, it also depends on which market we're looking at. The main take-home messages in terms of our technology are that, they're 100% natural, they're biodegradable. We also offer versatility and compatibility because we're not just offering one type of product. We actually have versatility in the different types of these soap particles that I mentioned. So there's higher chances than existing competitors in the ecological surfactant market that it will really fit well, mesh well with most of our clients' needs. So we offer, of course, the competitive edge with our cost efficiency, and that's due to the proprietary fermentation process that we're developing, and that allows us to produce our product in a sustainable yet efficient way.
So what I heard there at the end, and correct me if I'm wrong, is explaining the product, but then also a concerted effort to sort of differentiate yourself from the competition.
Yeah,
we do this, but we
Mhm.
also do this differently and better
Exactly.
than
I
other
think,
people.
yeah, so I think essentially in a pitch, what's important is first of all having what the problem is. So, of course, with any good business, there has to be a problem to solve in the first place. It's one thing to have really cool ideas and cool technology, but if there's no one there to buy it, you don't really have a business. So the key message that usually we start off with is painting the picture of what the problem is. Then we go on to say what the solution is that we're proposing. So, what is the problem? How do we at Dispersa solve that problem? And then we go into, we are Dispersa. This is what we do. This is what our technology is. Then we go into, more specifics. Where can your technology be applied? How does it work? Who are your main types of clients? It's also important to fixate on what's your business strategy at the moment. Of course, a business model can change drastically from beginning until, a few years down the line, but it's good to have a sense of idea as to where you are at each stage. So how is your business going to run? How are you going to make money? How are your investors going to make money? Where can your products be applied? And what is the value of that market? So, for example, for us, the market would be the surfactant industry that I mentioned. So, like, what is the value of that industry? It's also nice to focus on your team. No, building a business is really like really a joint effort. You need to have a team that's very supportive, and you surround yourself with people who are really great at what they do in different fields, and that's also a chance for an entrepreneur to learn new skills from their teammates. So I think those are sort of the main things, and also what your timeline is, and really the take-home message, like why are you doing this? I think the most important thing for me is why are you doing what you're doing? Why does it matter? And what do you have that could really change the scope of what we currently have?
Okay, thank you so much, Nivatha. You've covered everything, been so generous and insightful, and best of luck with everything, and with the big rollout that's coming for Dispersa.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, definitely. And if there's anything that I can do to help, if the students have more questions, feel free to let me know.
Okay, I'm going